Morning, everyone. We are just waiting for a couple of minutes to start. So, yeah, thank you and thanks for joining. I will start in a minute. I would like to give one more minute to people to join. Okay, I think we can start. Good morning, everyone, and welcome from sunny Brussels. My name is Tuğçe, and I work for CCRI Coordination and Support Office. And this is our fourth webinar. As you know, we organize regularly webinars on topics related to circular economy. And these are open to, all interested parties, but mainly cities and regions. And today, and you can consult our previous webinars online. We will share the links after the event. But today it's all about public procurement. We know it's a very powerful tool, but it comes with a series of challenges. So we are trying to address some of these challenges today, and we're trying to discover or explore how these initiatives that we will talk about can help you to overcome some of these issues. So we put together, I hope, a useful agenda for you. We will start first with the European Commission and how they do this strategic work on public procurement and how it helps cities and regions to in their initiatives. And then we'll talk about two EU-funded projects. One has recently ended, one has started a while ago. They both have insights and tools to share with us. And sorry, I was cut off. I don't know why. Sorry, I was cut off. I don't know why. So I was saying we will explore two EU-funded projects, and then we will go to practitioners themselves, Zero Waste Scotland and Asker Municipality from Norway, and they will talk about how they tackle the issue from their perspective. Couple of house rules. Yeah, I forgot to mention we will finish at 12. The original, the original listing stated 11:45. I hope it's okay with everybody. We wanted to have some room for chat and not to be stressed. So, couple of house rules. Your cameras and microphones are turned off. We are 50. We are not so many. In principle, we like to privilege you write in the chat, whatever your opinions, your questions. It's very important for us. I might not mention them all here, but please know that we are taking them into account as inputs. So do not hesitate to share whatever you have on your mind. It's recorded, this event, so if you want to remain anonymous, then you should refrain from using the chat. If you have questions during the presentations, please write them on the chat. I will try to relay them to the speakers, indicate who you're asking the question to, and then I will select and do my best to answer some of these, to help them answer some of these questions. I will, as I said, present the speakers in due course, but let's now start with the European Commission. Martin Zeidel will talk about the initiatives that they put in place, the European Commission put in place in the last years to help cities and regions. And as you know, we asked the question in the registration form, how aware are you of some of these initiatives? and we have seen that not so much. So this is useful, and please talk about your colleagues and spread the word. And the floor is yours, Martin. Thank you.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Tuğçe, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to present our work here. As you said, some of you are not familiar with some of the initiatives, so I'm glad to present some of them to you. I will start with maybe a slight perspective on the scope of public procurement. If we can have the next slide. Yes, thank you. The public procurement sector is huge in economic terms. It accounts for about 14% of the EU GDP. So when it comes to transition towards a more circular, more sustainable economy, it's not only you as regulators, maybe in the cities or regions, but also you as a market actor that can shape the market through public procurement. So you as a buyer can stimulate and the markets, and this is has been more and more emphasized in EU policies as well as in the member state policies. So we as a unit do not focus only on providing the legal framework. Maybe with the next slide. Yeah, not only focus on the legal framework and giving a supportive legal framework for procurement and to ensure a level playing field, both internationally and EU-wide, of course. But we try to foster strategic procurement from the member states, from the regions, from cities, so from all public buyers. And with this, giving more emphasis on innovative, green, and social responsible procurement. We do this in a variety of ways. Next slide, please. Mainly through providing support to public buyers, to reaching out to public buyers and try to disseminate information. We are trying to foster and to support knowledge management and build up of knowledge. So we do a lot of work in the capacity building and networking. And I will get into some of the here mentioned topics within the next slides. But our main work really is to encourage public buyers to look into how to innovate and how to achieve sustainability through their procurement choices, and to create added value and benefits for the communities, really beyond the simple purchase of products. And I want to talk about this Big Buyers initiative first. Maybe if we can have the next slide. Yes, we have, which was relaunched again just this spring. We had two very successful pilot projects with the same name, Big Buyers. And in this upcoming Big Buyers cycle, maybe next slide, we will have 10 working groups of public buyers that will work around their unmet needs in terms of works or services they need in the sectors of ICT, green, health, and social procurement. Those working groups will consist of several buyers that will be facilitated with webinars, with hackathons, with pitches. They will work together on deliverables. They will engage the markets together. This is what they've done in the last cycles as well, and thus shaping the EU market through public demand and through setting really goals and aims in the upcoming time. This next slide. Yes, and this really those activities are built around the needs of the buyers, and to really turn their problems or challenges into opportunities through the joint collaboration and market studies. This will be funded by the European Commission. We have a contractor which will organize field trips and things like this. I will give you a brief information on the last cycle achievements. For instance, there was, next slide, please. There was a working group in zero emission construction site. A few cities, not a few, well, there were 21, so quite a lot. On our perspective, worked together to achieve this goal. We, of course, there are always front runners like the city of Oslo, which already had a pilot project in 2019. But through this initiative, other cities could catch up. And for instance, Barcelona started its own zero emission construction site pilot project last year. And together they worked on a joint statement of demand, which 6 of the cities signed, and which is really a political commitment to implement zero emission construction sites over time, and thus not only a target and a goal for the cities, for the public buyers, but also a way to show a structured demand for the supplier side. So this also does not only help the cities as public buyers, but also the markets, the industry, to know what will be the future demand, and it signals a kind of trajectory for the markets. There was a similar working group on circular construction. Next slide, please. Which focused on asphalt, so not construction entirely, but they were focusing on asphalt. They worked on a joint declaration of intent to use more recycled asphalt or recycled aggregates in the asphalt, and some other statements they are trying to implement. I put the links in the slides, so I guess the slides will be disseminated after the seminar. You can check out the deliverables of the previous projects. And for the projects of the big buyers that we just launched, there is ongoing big needs assessment momentarily. Next slide, please. It will be open until the end of June, and this will help us to identify the needs of regions, of cities, of big buyers, but everyone can take part. So even if you're a rather small community, please take part in needs assessment. This will help us to figure out where collaboration on the European level would be beneficial, and what are the most needs at the moment. And we would then establish those working groups where those communities can work together. They will be probably set up at the end of this year, beginning of next year. So we are still in the process of onboarding and getting this third cycle of big buyers started. We then also, thank you, just launched a community platform for public buyers as a way to communicate, to network, to connect with the, next slide please, with the commission, and also with the industry, to keep each other informed. And within this platform, which is like a collaboration hub, let's say, we have communities of practice, so-called. They're like the previously mentioned working groups, kind of. They work together on certain the issues like AI, like BIM, for instance. And in this communities, all the public buyers that want to join, they can collaborate, exchange information. We will have events as well, and this is a tool to really foster and support this transition pathway to a more strategic application of public procurement. Next slide, please. So Just to give you a brief idea, we have over 400 members already on the platform, which is just a month old. We set up a few communities already. It's of course free to join. All you need is an ECAS account, so to access the European sites, the sites of the European Commission. But that is of course free to register and very easy to do. You can also visit the site without registering at all, but we highly recommend to have a look, to stroll through the site, to become a member of the communities if you want to participate. Most of them are open, and if there is any community also or need that you have which is not addressed, we also look forward in your suggestions to open new communities to work on deliverables in other fields. Besides that, we do have also practical support tools that are ready to use. For instance, together with DG Environment, there's a whole website, next slide please, for GPP criteria, also some criteria for sustainable, social responsible public procurement. There we have product groups like furniture, public space maintenance, energy, data, textiles, and those are also always combined with the best or good practice cases. So you see how they are applied. We have GPP training tools available, some tools that can calculate life cycling costing. We have guidance on buying social and green, which cover all steps of the procurement. So not only the procurement itself, but also like how to set up an organizational strategy within your entity, and to plan the tendering procedure, also elements of contract management. So it's worth checking them. And we set up a help desk which disseminates information. They have a newsletter as well. And they organize webinars, for instance. The next one is on social clauses in tendering procedures. So you can register there. It's mid-June. But more importantly, they have an email address also where you can write if you have any questions about your procurement regarding criteria or how to set up organizational strategy or things like this. You can always ask the help desk. They will reply in a timely manner. And so feel free to use it additionally to your national help desk, or if you don't have a national help desk, you can of course also and always go there. All the links are in the slides. Since we are running a bit out of time, I would just finish with other work we do, like webinars and publications. So we sometimes work together with universities to offer educational training or some sessions on certain issues that we upload on our YouTube channel. We just recently published a brochure on how to make your public procurement more attractive to startups, what you can do in terms of contract and engaging with the market. So those are other things that we do to trying to reach out to public buyers. And we do, of course, have a newsletter, and maybe next slide, we have a LinkedIn channel, so you can follow us there. And our main dissemination of information will be the platform I showed you. So feel free to join there and to subscribe to our newsletter. Then we'll be up to date, and you can always write us. The email is here if you have further questions to any of the initiatives. And this is it from me so far.
Thank you very much. I think you mentioned a lot of useful things. There are 2 questions in the chat, but maybe we can discuss one of them later. It means it's more less straightforward. These tools are open to everyone. Is that correct?
These tools are, yes, everything I showed you is open to everyone. Yes, of course.
Yes. And are they mainly targeting people who are going to procure? Or,
yes,
yes, okay. But as a SME, you can also be part of these communities and industrial business stakeholders as well,
you
right?
can be part, and it's also one of the goals, of course, to engage with the markets, and so you can yeah, of course, become a member and participate, and yeah.
Yeah, okay, very good. Thanks very much, Martin. And of course, we invite everyone to try out these tools and to join, and also please tell your colleagues, because I think more people we have on these platforms, communities, the better they are and more useful they are. So thank you very much. And if you have other questions, please do not hesitate. You can still write them on the chat. We will have a Q&A session, as I said, in the end. With this, we'll go to our second speaker, Alexandra van Deviere from Circular Flanders, but also from the ProCirc project. This ProCirc has recently ended, and they develop tons of useful materials. So she will talk about some of them, and so I would like to give the floor to Alexandra. Thank you very much. Floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Tuxa. Good morning, everyone. As Tuxa said, my name is Alexandra van de Vivre, and I am working at Circular Flanders, and we are a proud partner in the ProCirc project. And I would like to take this opportunity to briefly introduce you to the ProCirc project. Maybe if we can have the first slide, or even the second one. I would like to start off by stating that cities should invest in circular economy due to its numerous benefits across different domains. By investing in the circular economy, cities can unlock economic opportunities, create jobs, and enhance resource efficiency, and significantly contribute to environmental sustainability. The next slide, please. Perfect, thank you. Local authorities play a vital role in the circular economy by incorporating circular principles into policies and procurement, collaborating with diverse stakeholders, promoting cross-departmental collaboration, and facilitating effective governance. The next slide, please. By using their purchasing power, cities are able to grow the market for circular suppliers as well as lead by example. We believe that the demand for circular products and services will stimulate the market and reward circular innovation. In turn, this will have a large environmental impact by reducing the use of virgin materials, creation of waste, and emission of greenhouse gases. Next slide, please. The Flemish Green Deal on circular procurement introduced the circular ambition chart you can see on the slide now as a practical tool. This chart serves multiple purposes, including setting procurement ambitions for projects or organizations and facilitating discussions with suppliers on circular goals. It allows for defining circular goals using the letters and selecting strategies using the numbers. Multiple strategies are recommended to increase success. And when starting with circular procurement, it is advisable to choose a few goals rather than selecting too many at once. This approach maximizes your chances of effectively implementing circular practices. In addition, the chart emphasizes the importance of dialogue. It serves as a valuable instrument for engaging in a constructive dialogue with suppliers regarding your circular ambitions. By using this chart, you can openly discuss and align your goals, strategies, and expectations, fostering collaboration and shared understanding among all stakeholders involved in the procurement process. Next slide, please. In a nutshell, the ProCirc project is a transformative learning experience focused on accelerating the circular economy through procurement practices. It is an Interreg North Sea region project with 11 partners from 6 countries, targeting key sectors such as construction, ICT, furniture, and textiles. The project timeline spans from 2019 until June of this year, and ProCirc aims to facilitate the exchange of knowledge and best practices on harnessing public procurement as a catalyst from transitioning from a linear economy to a circular one. The project's ultimate goal is to foster the development of and adoption of shared circular procurement framework, promoting sustainable and circular practices in public procurement processes. Next slide, please. ProCirc has established 18 communities of practice dedicated to specific product groups, including ICT, office furniture, textiles, and more. These communities of practice serve as platforms for knowledge sharing, collaboration, and collective learning amongst procurers and stakeholders in those sectors. They can vary in size, ranging from small groups to larger networks. And additionally, ProCirc has facilitated procure-to-procurer learnings exchanges, enabling procurement professionals to learn from each other's experiences and best practices. Next slide, please. Within ProCirc, over 30 pilots have been conducted involving real procurement processes that incorporate circular principles. These pilots serve as practical examples demonstrating the application of circular procurement in action. Through these initiatives, procurers are harnessing their procurement power to achieve significant environmental benefits. These pilots all aim to reduce CO2 emissions, decrease raw material consumption, and minimize waste production by an estimated 20 to 25%. Next slide, please. The ProCirc partners have conducted a thorough analysis of the pilot case studies, resulting in 2 comprehensive reports. These reports offer valuable insights, highlighting the practical implementation of circular procurement and sharing the successes, challenges, and lessons learned from all these pilot projects. They serve as valuable resources for understanding and applying these circular procurement practices. Next slide, please. On the left, you can see the practical report from the ProCirc project, which offers valuable lessons learned from the pilots. The report serves as a starting point, directing procurers to relevant resources within the ProCirc project, and it provides procurers with the necessary knowledge and tools to effectively navigate the implementation process. And on the right, the report on scaling opportunities provides recommendations targeted at policymakers. It highlights opportunities for scaling up circular procurement practices and offers insights into policy changes and interventions that can facilitate the broader adoption of circular procurement. Next slide, please. The practical report is divided into different sectors, such as construction, textiles, and others, and each sector-specific section provides insights, recommendations, and highlights case studies relevant to that sector. The report focuses on success factors, key considerations, and also practical lessons to take into account. It serves as a valuable resource, guiding procurers towards relevant resources and providing sector-specific guidance. The example you can see on the right is one from Business in a Community that supported Integral UK Ltd on including circular principles in their no workwear tender. The bids were assessed using a balanced scorecard, and the suppliers could earn extra points by indicating what innovative approach they would use to keep improving over the course of the contract. And this positively pushed the market to innovate. And the selected supplier offered new circular solutions, such as return for recycling system and shirts to be designed to be 100% recyclable. Next slide, please. The report presents 5 key recommendations for procurers in circular procurement. I'm just keeping an eye on the time. I won't go into these in detail, but you can read all about it in the report that is available on our website. And it also includes a checklist based on the circular procurement roadmap, which highlights the main considerations when initiating circular procurement. Next slide, please. The second report, specifically aimed at policymakers, provides a concise overview of the key insights and recommendations derived from the projects. Next slide, please. Where several barriers were identified when examining the pilot cases, and these include a persistent focus on lowest price, limitations and the availability of circular products, services, and business models in the market, preconceptions rooted in the linear economy, lack of awareness in regulation, and conflicting targets that hinder concrete goals and strategies in the circular economy. To address these barriers, 4 key areas of focus have been identified for stimulating and overcoming challenges. First, the procurement regulations should incorporate considerations for circularity. Second, the sector regulations should promote and mandate products with higher social and environmental performance. Third, the internal policies should encourage organizations to surpass regulatory requirements and embrace circular ambitions. And lastly, external policies, goals, and ambitions at a higher level should bring together both frontrunners and organizations in the early stages of adopting circular procurement practices. Next slide, please. Based on these findings, 5 opportunities, main messages from the project for accelerating circular procurement were defined, and they are classified in different levels, being procurement, value chain, market, and organization and global level. Next slide, please. Our first recommendation is to raise minimum standards for procuring organizations by transitioning from voluntary to mandatory criteria. The Circular Economy Action Plan his commitment to making GPP criteria mandatory for specific sectors is a significant step forward. The second recommendation focuses on improving the social and environmental performance of specific products. This can include minimizing chemical impact, restricting the use of certain raw materials, or establishing requirements for longevity and transparency in evaluation. The third recommendation highlights the importance of supporting and incentivizing the market to develop circular solutions and business models. This can be achieved through measures such as mandatory LCAs and further research and development in sectors like, for example, closed loop recycling systems and effective sorting options. And the fourth recommendation emphasizes engaging individuals and organizations in the circular economy journey. It is essential to involve users, departments, procurers, but also managers, lawyers, and financiers to find solutions, for example, in defining contracts and monitoring impact. And lastly, the adoption of an overarching vision that links individual performance goals to the overall objective of a circular economy enables scaling up and achieving significant progress. Next slide, please. The ProCirc project has also developed a comprehensive framework on circular procurement, including tools, guidance, toolboxes, a transformative roadmap, and other resources. And these components are all designed to assist procurers at different stages of their circular procurement journey and can be accessed separately as needed to help organizations translate their sustainable and circular procurement ambitions into meaningful actions. ProCirc has collaborated with Studio D to create a change management workshop guide. And this guide facilitates workshops where procurement teams can identify behavioral bottlenecks and opportunities related to circular goals. And the teams are guided in developing customized hands-on actions to overcome these barriers, resulting in a draft action plan that aligns with the procurement transformation canvas. Next slide, please. On the ProCirc website, you can access 2 support documents for integrating circularity in your procurement process, the procurement transformation canvas with a workshop manual, and then the circular procurement transformation guidance. And we really aim to create a user-friendly resource that guides procurers without overwhelming them. And the workshop documents offers advice for organizations looking to rethink their procurement process and integrate circularity into their department. The guidance document provides additional information like tips, tools, and inspiration for each phase of the procurement journey. And it includes insights from the ProCirc pilots and a lot of circular procurement tools and toolboxes. Next slide, please. As previously mentioned, ProCirc has actively organized diverse communities of practice that engage stakeholders throughout the supply chain to facilitate transnational market engagement, business modeling, and partnership creation in circular procurement. Next slide, please. Additionally, the ProCirc partners are dedicated to formulating joint statement of demand in 3 product categories, being professional clothing, office furniture, and electrical vehicle chargers. And these GSDs serve to set ambitions, goals for future procurement, and provide procurers with tested circular requirements and showcase shared demands from committed procurers and drive supplier organization. Next slide, please. We are also committed to a long-term upscaling of circular procurement. We have a LinkedIn group called Circular Procurement Network with over 1.1K members, which enables us to connect with colleagues and exchange knowledge. We invite all of you to join our network. We are also actively participating in the EU Stakeholder Platform Leadership Group on Circular Procurement, focusing on high-level policy learning and exchange. And we have already facilitated 3 circular talks, which can also be rewatched on the website. And next slide, please. To round off, I would like to share some main takeaways where change and experimentation are crucial in driving circular procurement. It is not about achieving all the goals on the ambition charts, but rather engaging internal stakeholders, selecting pilots, and discussing ambitions with suppliers and clients. And to energize change in your organization, you need champions, early adopters, ambassadors who can influence and mobilize others. They serve a role as models and catalysts for driving the transition. And these entrepreneurs can create a sense of ownership and commitment to the change process, fostering collaboration and cooperation. And to ensure success, align sustainability goals with policy goals and emphasize its relevance to achieve a broader outcome such as robustness, savings, public opinions, and employee retention. On the ProCirc website, you can access all these different guidances and tools. Please remember, it only takes one person to get the ball rolling in an organization where together we can drive change and make a meaningful impact on the transition to a circular economy. Next slide, please. If you're interested in gaining further insights into the findings of the ProCirc project, we invite you to rewatch our online event that was held on April the 18th, called Circular Procurement, No Time to Waste. And on the next slide, you can find our contact information. And I want to thank you for joining this session. And I will give the word to thanks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. As you can see, there are a lot of tools. They are there for you to use. So please have a look. You don't have to use all of them. You can, even if you have, you test one of them and provide some feedback, it will be, I think, very useful. We have a question for Alexandra, but I noted it. I'll keep it for after the presentations. Just one quick question from my side. You mentioned communities of practice. Are they finished and sealed, or can we still join them? Is it open to people?
It differs. You can find an overview on the website of ProCirc which ones there are, and I would encourage you to take a look and see for the ones that are of interest to you if they are still active.
Okay.
I can say the joint statement of demands you can still apply to if you are interested. So that would be great.
That will be my second question. Thank you very much. Thanks, Alexandra. And we'll come back to these questions. And please, as I said before, if you have others, don't hesitate to put them on the chat. We're going to Brink now. Brink is also about procurement, but it has an innovative element in it and also a cross-border element. So it kind of involves 2 interesting elements that maybe the others don't specifically mention. So Johan from Danish Clean Cluster, right?
Yes.
We'll talk about Brink. So floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, but as Tixi mentioned, my name is Joan Juhl, and I'm a project manager at Clean. It's the Danish Environmental Cluster, and we're in the Spring project together with other partners. So I'm happy to be here and tell you all about it. And as Tixi also mentioned, it's a little bit different. We don't have as many learnings to share because this project is still running. It's a 3-year project, and we are halfway in by now. So what I'm going to do is give you a little bit of an overview of what we're doing and what we are trying to do. And then I will tell you a little bit about the ongoing things that we're doing to hopefully give you a little bit of insights to what kind of learnings and experiences we have and what we're working with. So we can jump to the next slide. Just to start with, BRINC stands for, a little bit complicated, Brokering Cross-Border Innovation Through Clusters. So as Tykse also mentions, it's the cross-border part and the innovation part is important. I will just read to you the purpose of the project. It is to accelerate the uptake of innovation within circular economy, increase the use of joint public procurement of innovation across borders by facilitating procurement of innovation, and by offering training sessions for public buyers, SMEs, and inner brokers. So really, it also builds on this idea that public buyers can play a very active role in accelerating the development of innovation in this project, specifically within circular economy. And also the idea that this can be more powerful if we partner public buyers across borders. And that also builds on the belief that actually there are lots of similarities, even though there are also differences. Public buyers around Europe are experiencing some of the same challenges, and we can find solutions together for some of those. An important part is also this inner brokers idea, but I will get a little more into that with the next slide. This is kind of a graphical explanation of what we are trying to do. So we have here in the middle the BRINC project, or it could also be substituted by just organizations like ourselves, these kind of facilitator organizations in the world. So what we are trying to do is to be that connection between the innovative ecosystem, the SMEs, the researchers, and then the public buyers, and trying to see what the role is also for us to help bridge this and bring everyone together. And we can go to the next slide. And so just a little bit more specifically, what is it that we are doing in this project? We will try to support 2 to 5 cases of innovation procurement with buyer groups. So we find common needs and group public authorities across borders. And then we will go through more or less this whole process, depending on also where they are. It can be adapted a little bit, but help with the need scoping, the innovation scanning, and getting in contact with the ecosystem, as well as with the procurement implementation. So the goal, which we are still kind of striving for, is to have 2 to 5 procurement processes finalized by the end of the project. So actually procurement going through with a cross-border element. And then, of course, another important part is the professional networks and this knowledge sharing and capacity building. So we are in the project also developing training sessions for SMEs, inner brokers, and also public buyers. And we can jump to the next one. Then I will just give you a little bit of insights to which kind of PPI tracks or groups of buyers are we working with right now. We have 3 ones that are interesting and relevant to talk about at this point, and we are still also open for more tracks. If any of you have something that could be interesting to work with, feel free to reach out. But yeah, I will start by giving you a little bit of a intro to this diaper recycling solutions, which is the next slide. That is a case where we have we're working with the city of Copenhagen. They have run pilots with collecting diapers as a separate waste fraction. And then now they're searching for solutions to recycle the diapers. And this comes from a goal of eliminating the amount of waste generated and not being recycled or reused in some way. And as some of you maybe know, if you have kids, diapers that constitutes a heavy fraction. So it's it's an impactful fraction to actually do something about. There are right now 7 facilities across the world that have technologies for recycling diapers, and Copenhagen wants to have one in the vicinity, so we can they can reuse here, or recycle. What they kind of need our help for, they were actually quite far in this process. They've already run the pilots with, it's possible to collect this separately, but in order to make it kind of make sense to have a facility that does this recycling, they needed to kind of bring up the volume or make it credible that there would be more volume than just the diapers from Copenhagen area. So that is kind of what we have helped with bringing other municipalities together, mixing with some Swedish municipalities, other Danish ones. And yeah, this has been done, for example, through a webinar also with Affald Norway, and then the Swedish and Danish kind of sister organizations. And what we are doing right now is to collect letters of interest from these other organizations to show that there is actually more demand than just Copenhagen. And hopefully the plan is for them to finish the procurement before the end of the year. And I included also a link where you can read more, especially about this collection pilot that they already performed on how they made that work. We can jump to the next one. Another one is bulky waste reuse. We're talking mainly to Helsingborg in Sweden, Malmö in Sweden, and then Nyborg in Denmark. Cities, all of these. They would like to reuse their furniture and different kinds of what turns into bulky waste if it's thrown out, reuse that internally. But they've all experienced that some of them have systems, but they're not really used very well. It's not being utilized in an effective way. And they're also actually all seeing that they don't have a good overview, or they don't really know how much furniture do they have, how many chairs have they put into the depot, where could they possibly be used. So they're looking for some kind of system to do this. And what we have done right now is to have a solution with suppliers for them to kind of try to refine the need and find out what's there in the market, what can we do, or get a little bit deeper in what's actually the need. And this workshop was just yesterday, so it's exciting to see what kind of will be the next step for this one. If we can jump to the next one. Then there is one where we are working with the elimination of single-use personal protective gear or equipment in hospitals. This was brought by ICS, who manages 8 hospitals in the Catalan region. They're consuming large quantities of all these safety equipments. It can be the mask, the gowns, the sheets, all of this that is just used and thrown out, and it's classified as a Group 2 sanitary waste. And it's a little bit challenging because it's a lot of different plastic types mixed. But they want to find a way to either have this not single use, like different things that could be possibly used again, or ways to recycle the waste in a good way. So actually they have already performed a preliminary market engagement, or did a call for solutions without much luck. Didn't get much input from that. So that's when we got in contact with them. So we're hoping to help. Right now we're trying to match them with hospitals in other regions and get the interest from other buyers. And then we can hopefully help with really making a market engagement where we can give them more input to work with. So that will be the next steps. We can go ahead to the next one. Then I just wanted to quickly mention, I think might be relevant for a lot of you, we will also develop training modules for public authorities. You can see a little bit what they will be about here. We have already had 2, but there will be some on IPR and contract management, organizational change, and cross-border procurement is what's the ideas for now. It could change, and there will also be for SMEs and for interbrokers if any of you are in that category instead, but just to let you know about these. And then we can jump to maybe the last slide, or second last. We can take the next one. Yeah, I just wanted to quickly mention that we have an online platform where you can sign up and access these training materials and stay informed. And you're also, of course, welcome to reach out to me if any of these topics were interesting or you would like to in some way connect. That was all, I think, from me. Just thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Johan. And I think people have a lot of things to look at, and I think they can also choose. It's nice to have this diversity. You can choose whatever suits you best. I will have a question for you, but later, because I want to go to the next speaker. Thank you very much again. It was very interesting, and I think the examples are very concrete and problems of everybody, really. Yeah, thanks. So next, we are turning to Zero Waste Scotland. They have developed a couple of tools for themselves. One of them being the Circular Office Supplies Directory. And Laura Blair is going to tell us all about it. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and morning everyone. I'm Laura Blair, partner for Circular Cities and Regions at Zero Waste Scotland, and I'm primarily going to be talking to you today about the Circular Office Suppliers Directory that we created as part of our involvement in the ProCirc Interreg project. Next slide, please. But first of all, for those of you who aren't familiar with us, Zero Waste Scotland is a not-for-profit environmental organisation funded by the Scottish Government and the European Regional Development Fund. And we exist to lead our nation to use products and resources responsibly, focusing on where we can have the greatest impact on climate change. So our work spans a number of different sectors, such as food systems and energy infrastructure, construction, as well as cross-cutting issues, including skills, policy, my own place-based activity, as well as circular procurement. Next slide, please. And if you click again, that's great, thank you. So what was the purpose of the directory? Well, ultimately, it's intended to make it easier and faster for organisations to source circular products and services, and to align with our other work on green recovery and the building of resilient local supply chains. So the directory itself is actually presented as an interactive map, which I'll show you an example of later. And this allows organisations to search for the products that they're looking for, such as office furniture, and make it easier for them to contact those circular suppliers. So from my own work on circular cities and regions, I know I was certainly asked frequently by stakeholders, particularly in the public sector, for information on where they could find circular suppliers. Where could they source circular alternatives to their existing products and services? And this tool really helps them to do just that. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as I said, this tool was developed as a pilot through ProCirc, which you've obviously already heard about today, and this sits within the Circular Office community of practice. During the development stage, a lot of research was undertaken to review existing kind of similar tools. A number of stakeholder sessions were carried out to test ideas, to gather feedback and input. And these sessions involved a variety of different teams at Zero Waste Scotland, but also some of our wider stakeholders. For example, some of our Circular Cities ambassadors, which are groups of engaged, primarily SME representatives from different Scottish cities. This was followed up with a series of demonstrations and user testing to help test or check the functionality and to address any issues that there might be. Next slide, please. And this is what the final product looks like. So as you can see, it's possible to search by postcode and by city, and this will show all the suppliers registered on the site which provide services in that particular area. So for example, if I search for Edinburgh, all of the suppliers serving the city of Edinburgh will be shown, not just those based within the city. So with that in mind, the site does include a number of suppliers that are headquartered across the UK, but only where those suppliers are accessible to the Scottish organisations. Next slide, please. As well as location, it's also possible to filter the results by material or product or service, and the users can select from flooring, furniture, ICT, lighting, online marketplace, textiles, and other. So we did have it's not just a complete free-for-all in other, it's still very much focused on office-related goods and services rather than anything wider. But once you've made that selection, you can then view the matching suppliers on the map or as a separate list. And selecting on a supplier brings up its details, and you can see an example here for Spruce Carpets, which includes their contact details. It includes a brief description of the organisation and the material or service that they provide, plus any additional relevant information. For example, in this case, it's about a delivery area restriction. If we can have the next slide, please. Thank you. One of the major decisions that we needed to make when developing this was about the types of suppliers and products that would be eligible for inclusion. So we were focusing on suppliers offering office-related materials and services because the pilot was developed as part of that Circular Office community of practice. And we also applied a fairly broad description whereby we welcomed applications from any business which, and I quote, designs products or services smartly with the product's whole life cycle in mind. This might include services like reusing and repairing products to extend their useful life, And then when the product is deemed over, remanufacturing to create new products from old, end quote. So applications were invited and were then assessed to determine whether or not they met that brief, and therefore whether or not it was appropriate for them to be included on the site. All of the applicants then received a notification of their assessment outcome, and those that were successful have been included on the site. Can we have the next slide, please? Thank you very much. So for anyone interested in developing something similar, from our experience with this particular tool, there are several issues which would flag as needing careful consideration. So first of all, awareness. You need to consider how you will raise awareness of the tool, both with suppliers who will be listed on it and the procurers who will ultimately use it. The suppliers, because you want to make sure that you have a good selection of appropriate businesses listed on the site so that it's useful. And procurers, because the tool is only fulfilling its function if it's being used by organizations to actually procure circular products. So in this case, we created a communications pack for stakeholders, which included a slide deck, information on the directory, and to encourage suppliers to sign up. We also included some standard text, which could be easily inserted by the suppliers into their newsletters or other circulars. And we created template social media messages. We also used our connections and networks, various Zero Waste Scotland teams, to help really get the message out there. And we engaged with some of our key partners who could support the dissemination of the message to their wider memberships and networks as well. So, for example, through the Circular Cities and Regions team, we have some great local partners at Chambers of Commerce, and through our business support service, we were able to contact our support alumni and to get them involved. You do also really need to consider the criteria that you're going to apply for suppliers. What types of businesses and products and or services do you actually want to include? How broad or narrow a definition of circular do you want to use? If it's too exclusionary, you may end up with very few entries. If it's too lenient, you may very well end up with products or services that perhaps aren't all that circular. So you do need to be careful and make sure that the tool is ultimately fulfilling its purpose. You then need to consider how the criteria will be applied. Do you want to run checks, and do you have the resource to do that? And if so, how often? Will there be ongoing applications just ad hoc, or will it be delivered in rounds? Or would you be happy for organizations to simply add themselves and manage their own entries? This will all depend on the resource you have available and what you're trying to achieve. Finally, there are issues of ongoing maintenance and long-term management. This was set up as a pilot, but if the directory is going to be kept going in the longer term, these are issues that do need to be considered. With ProCirc come to a close, we are still able to direct people to this tool, but we need to reach a decision on its future. And we'll be looking at what it has achieved, what it offers compared to other potentially similar directories that are operational in Scotland. Is there enough demand, and is the unique selling point, that USP, strong enough to continue committing resource and maintaining this particular tool? Next slide, please. Just quickly, in addition to the directory, we also have developed or overseen the development of several other tools to support circular procurement in Scotland. For example, we have a 9-module e-learning course designed to help public sector organisations to identify how they can optimise the economic, social and environmental outcomes of their procurement activity and ultimately support their transition to net zero. So this e-learning tool was created by Sustainable Procurement Limited at our request and was also funded through ProCirc. So you can see the 9 modules listed there. The course itself can be accessed via the Scottish Government's Sustainable Procurement Tools website, and it's great to have it here as part of a suite of resources. And because this is a government site, it really helps to build trust in its content, particularly with public sector procurers. There are lots of other resources on that site, including a life cycle impact mapping tool, sustainability tests, a sustainable procurement guidance document, a variety of case studies as well. So it's well worth having a look if you can, and you can see the link to the page there. If anyone does want to have a look and has any trouble accessing that page, you're welcome to contact me. I will put my details in the chat. Next slide, please. And that's all from me today. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will look forward to your questions.
Thanks very much, Laura. This is quite useful. I hope you keep it. I'm not aware of any other tools, obviously, because I don't work for a public authority office. But I would like to hear also from the people on the call in the meeting if they have a similar tool or if have used something like this before and how did they find it. We have some questions for you too, and I'm going to keep them also for the Q&A session. And thanks very much again. So with this, we are going to our last speaker. From Asker, Norway. And Tommy is going to talk about how they kind of combining a political ambition or vision and practical tools. Thanks very much, Tommy, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tuxe, and hello to everyone. I'm representing the procurement section in the Asker municipality. Asker is a municipality in Norway, situated just outside Oslo. I'm going to give a brief presentation of the background and strategy, and some climate requirements, which is given as a cross-sectoral assignment for all departments. And I'm going to have a summary of project reusing furniture, and a practical review of procurement in progress right now regarding digital platform for use. Next, please. Yeah, this is an actual photo from a situation in a nursing home in Asker, and we thought a lot of this and think about what procurements must be made before this meeting can actually take place. And what environmental, social, and economic impacts do these procurements have? With the awareness that the municipalities' many small and large acquisitions are crucial to providing good services, and understanding is also emerging that these constitute great market power. Great market power entails accountability and the opportunity to influence environmental and social conditions in the procurement process and in the supply chains. Next. Please. All Norwegian municipalities are required to base their planning on the UN sustainability goals. Both national legislation and governing documents often address sustainability and social considerations. Asker was provided early on in this task, and the municipal plan, the action program, thematic plans, and business plans all reflect this. In 2020, we had a municipal merger between 3 former municipalities, which gave an opportunity for rebuilding. Sustainability is now the foundation of the new Asker municipality. Expectations for sustainability are generally extensively discussed in connection with procurement in the different plans. The tools and guidance may not be available, and the knowledge, maturity, and ambitions are constantly changing. The key to success with the procurement function lies in giving the organization support for how its goals can be realized at various levels. That public procurement should take sustainability into account is hardly controversial anymore. The doors are often wide open, and the supplier market is in several areas far ahead of demands from the public sector. But this does not apply to everyone, so the municipalities and all the public contracting authorities must organize procurement so that good and sustainable solutions actually are rewarded and captured in the agreements made with suppliers. Standardized requirements and procurement models are important to give suppliers the opportunity to invest in the right direction to give the most effect upon our goals. Standardization makes it possible for SMEs to participate in tenders and for the whole society to ensure volume of sustainability. Not to forget, 2/3 of the emission targets is supposed to be reached from local and regional contribution. A large proportion of the municipality's budget is related to procurement. The procurement strategy or platform must ensure that the municipality spending procurement is used strategically to meet the municipality's overall objectives. Asker municipality's new platform takes into account the municipality's central objectives, as the 3 dimensions of sustainability are the basic foundation for the platform. These are economic, social, and environmental. We emphasize that procurement has no other meaning than to support the organization's defined processes and goals. Next, please. So, which topics are we concerned with in our sustainable procurement platform? For financial sustainability, we address competence and organization, the procurement process and contract follow-up, analyze, standardization, digitization, contract coverage and delivery security, market stimulation, need for innovation, procurement cooperation, and external actors and collaboration. Next, please. For environmental sustainability, we address analysis and measurements of environmental contributions from acquisitions, current obligations and projects to be followed up in procurement, the circular economy, of course, return of materials, packaging, environmental certification of suppliers, use of environmental labels, especially about vehicles, transport and machinery, and transport and logistics as a special development area. And for yes, please, we're on the right one. And for social sustainability, we're especially concerned about social responsibility, serious working life, constructive working life crime, countering illegal tender cooperation, traceability, use of social labeling schemes, ethical trade, universal design, local suppliers, reservation of contracts. This is for idealistic organizations and so on. Next, please. There is 3 cross-sectoral assignments that have been given to all the municipalities during this year. They are reduction of food waste, a follow-up of internal travel policy, an obligation on setting climate and environmental requirements in procurement. In addition, there is importance of increased reuse is pointed out for all units. Next, please. So, what does this mean in practice? As an example, we can summarize from our project of relocation due to the municipal merger between 3 former municipalities, Asker, Røyken and Hurum, in 2020. There were 25 locations and 600 employees affected by this relocation. We saved about Norwegian kroner 16 million, which is about 1.6 billion euro. And there was a waste of 19 tons avoided. And we avoided 234 tons of CO2 equivalents. Next, please. In the project, we combine both economic and environmental and social considerations in this recycling project. Municipal work centers carry out redesign and cleaning tasks. The municipality's work training center Modus performs internal relocation tasks. Next, please. Here we can see a share updated and no matches. It's no new surroundings. It's a this is a rather small effort. Next, please. This new reception disk, it's the only one of its kind, I think, which been made after redesign. That can be a solution to achieve circularity and at the same time create jobs. So a lot of chairs going out of time, and then we had a beautiful control desk. Next, please. And Asker is now looking for a digital solution within circularity, and we have started an innovation procurement process right now. Our challenge is that we have a lot of locations, among others, 39 schools, 100 kindergartens, several senior centers, and a lot of municipality offices with a lot of furniture and different materials. The question is, how can we keep track of all the things that maybe others wants to use? For example, one school needs 150 chairs and a senior center wants to get rid of a lot of chairs. How can we match these needs? In addition, we have recycling stations with a lot of stuff apparently being garbage for some, but of course there's a lot of things that can be reused by others. How can the recycling stations inform about all the stuff they have, and how can others pick it up? And if we think even larger, what about all the 11,000 companies in ASKI, 100,000 inhabitants, the 600 volunteers organizations, and what about all the other municipalities nearby? How can we keep track of all this stuff, and how can we easily reuse all these things? We need a solution to solve our need. And how can we have a dashboard that shows us the environmental effects, the effect of the savings in kroner and in currency? This is an example of a challenge within circularity that we have right now and are searching for a solution. And we have started our procurement by using the process innovation partnerships, where a supplier can develop a solution in close cooperation with the municipality. We then have the possibility to buy the solution if the solution that is developed fill our needs. Next, please. We want to combine useful functions from various existing platforms into one digital platform accessible for all interested parties without unnecessary barriers attached. The system should gain effective benefits for suppliers, residents, and employees. It should contain a dashboard showing these gains and process reporting. As part of the International Directorate for Financial Management, DFÖ, they are participating in a Nordic project, a circular and climate-friendly public procurement. ASKI and the Directorate have a cooperation agreement for implementation of the innovative ICT procurement. The project wants to reduce the climate and environmental footprint of the Nordic public sector's high consumption of goods and services, with a focus on further developing the measurement of climate effects in public procurement. The Directorate assists as an advisor in relation to contracts and procurement regulations, as well as promoting innovative procurement. ASKI Municipality has committed to carrying out an innovative procurement and is receiving funds to develop this innovative solution. Next, please. And that was all from us here in ASKI. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tommy. And this is interesting because you are procuring for a platform that will enable reuse. So you are really making it in terms of reducing waste and use of new materials, whether it's recycled or not. If you have questions, I see a question. So thank you very much for all of the speakers. Maybe you can turn on your cameras now, all of you, and I have some questions for each of you, but I want to start with a question that I think that is on everybody's minds. I don't know who can reply to this, or maybe all of you can say something. In these projects, or in these initiatives, or as your own, you procure or you help authorities procure, and I always feel there is an anxiety about legal barriers, a fear of going beyond legal issues, like legal constraints or the law. Did you encounter this when you were working on this with pilot projects? Did you set a barrier where you said, oh, we cannot do this because this is going to be a legal issue? Or is it more like something on our heads which stops us for taking this first step that Alexandra was talking about? If anyone wants to jump in.
I can say something. we don't have, I haven't thought about it as ourselves, or we haven't been kind of stopped by legal barriers, but I agree with you that it is something that we hear when we've talked to the public buyers, especially a lot of questions around IPR. So that is something that we will have as one of the trainings, and I'm not myself an expert, so I will also learn something in this one. But also in relation, I think, to this market engagement, I think sometimes there's a little bit of an nervousness around, like, how do we engage with the market before a tender without breaking any rules around making it fair. So that's at least two things that we have heard.
I think I would echo that, if that's okay. Yeah, I would say the same. It's about, yeah, that market engagement piece beforehand. How far can they engage with the market to understand what circular solutions are actually available when they're going to be creating tenders, without crossing that line into unfair advantage? And I think that's probably the biggest legal related challenge that we've experienced. There probably are a number of other barriers, but in terms of the legal aspect, that's probably the closest. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Alexander, maybe if you remember any other issues from the other pilots.
Well, I agree with what Johan and Laura already said. I'm just thinking it's really important to look into what has already been done, since there are already so many pilots who have faced these barriers and overcome them some type of way. But it's really the research that needs to be put into it for you to do it yourself. And these barriers, it's also important to find out what they exactly are, and in order to really understand them, to be able to overcome them, and to look for other ways, or to see how others have faced them. And I think that's maybe the main message on those legal barriers.
Yeah, thank you very much. Anybody else? If not, I'll go to the next question. So there is a question about supply and demand. You know, I think there's more demand than supply. How do we, I think for those who already are doing public procurement in a circular way, do you see a lack of supply in the beginning, but then with the right messaging, you know, maybe the businesses will come at the table? And it's also for Martin, I think, because there is a question about, do you also address the supply side, or maybe reducing this demand side from in these commission initiatives, but also a question to everybody.
Yes, this is again a question, and with the, regarding the engagement with the market, and the suppliers, which is very important, and also to set goals as a public buyer, so that the suppliers know what they can expect in the coming years. That is vital. If they don't know, they cannot supply. So this would be a chicken and the egg kind of situation. If you don't procure anything circular because you feel the market cannot supply, and you don't go out there and talk about it, then the market will never be able to supply it. And there are, yes, I think problems with this, especially for instance in construction, when we talk about circular construction products. But also there's a kind of fear, therefore, of public buyers not to procure something circular. So we have the same situation. So I think it's important to have a strategy on your procurement, and to engage with the market, so that the suppliers really know what they can expect in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody wants to comment? Yeah, Laura. Yes.
Yes, from Zero Waste Scotland. So because we have such a wide range of different programs, we are sort of working with individual sectors to try and support both that kind of supply and demand side. So we're trying to talk to construction companies to encourage them to use circular products. We're also working with circular construction product manufacturers to try and encourage them to be more circular in what it is that they're producing. Our other main program that we have in terms of the supply side is business support service, which has worked for a number of years to try and build capacity and awareness amongst the business community within Scotland across the board of the circular economy, and to support them to embed circular practice and thinking into their products, into their services, as well as into their own kind of internal procedures for procurement. So we've been trying to come at it from both the supply and the demand side, but it does take time to, so they do need to go along together. Because as Martin kind of said, you know, if you've got lots of demand and no supply, no, that's not particularly helpful. But no, businesses don't want to be putting forward new products and things that aren't going to have a market. So they really do need to go along together.
Yeah, very true. Side by side, almost. Yeah. Tommy, you had your hand raised, but then you lowered it. Yeah.
I think this is obviously a long-term influence upon the market, but here now there is also discussion of the maturity of how evolved are the different markets, so that will give us opportunities to have different types of approach. With some cases we want the solutions right here now, and in other situations we can have a developing area in the contract. So this is flexible, I think.
So it's important also to have an overview of, you know, what is out there. Maybe that's why tools like what Laura presented are useful in this sense. Alexandra, you also had your hand raised.
Yes, I just wanted to add to this that I believe the circular ambition chart, which I mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, and I saw there was a question about that one as well, is really a helpful tool in supporting your circular public procurement by identifying these circular objectives and strategies. And it provides this overview of possible actions and procurement strategies aligned with circular principles. And it also helps organizations like determine achievable short-term actions and also long-term ambitions by really getting into the conversation dialogue with the suppliers. It really makes it achievable, and you get a really good understanding of what can be achieved, like in the short term, as I said, and in the long term. And I really believe this is a very strong tool to assess these objectives and to pursue these in the circular procurement processes. It helps to align everything and to make informed choices about these suppliers, about these products. And yes, I think it supports this this circularity, and it contributes to this more sustainable procurement process. I am thinking I will post the link to the English version so everyone can access it. There's also a second that builds on the first one to identify indicators to monitor your progress, which is very interesting as well.
Yeah, thanks. And so you also answered the question that I was going to ask. Great. Martin, yes?
Sorry, no, that was wrong click.
Okay. Joanne, I have a question for you. So you mentioned several, diapers and furniture. Can people get in touch with Brink if they are interested in these topics, if they're facing similar? Is there something to do there, because the project is ongoing? So
exactly,
I think there's
everyone are very welcome to reach out. And as you say, these are ongoing and at different stages, but all of them will continue to be open just to follow more closely. And you can email me directly. I hope that if the slides will be shared, my email is in there. And I also put the link to this online platform where you can sign up and see. But also some of them are open for if you want to join that procurement, that's also still possible. Or if you have a new topic you would like to bring in.
Yeah, because I know that I heard diapers issue from, other cities we're in touch with. So I think they will be interested. Thanks a lot. A question for Laura. This platform that the director you mentioned, you talked about vetting. It's a labeling process, really. How do you make sure it's really circular? And maybe you can elaborate on it. I know you talked about it, but there was a question on it. Or maybe how do you make sure it's continuously monitored? I mean, I think it's new, the platform, right? Or
it's
maybe
fairly new. I mean, it was developed as a pilot, so it was for a certain period of time. So we only had one real kind of wave of intake, which was at the beginning for suppliers. So and checks were not carried out sort of repeatedly throughout the period of it because there wasn't really long enough. If we'd planned, or if it continues, there will need to be checkpoints that are carried out to make sure that it remains accurate, that the suppliers on it are still relevant. I think that when suppliers agreed to go on it in the first place, like for the duration of the pilot scheme, they would maintain if any details changed, then they kind of agreed that they would be the ones to go on and make those adaptations. In terms of making sure that the right companies get on it, I gave a kind of short description of what we kind of said that would be included. We did have a slightly longer sheet that then included examples of what do we mean by reuse, what do we mean by remanufacture, what do we mean by designed for recyclability, easily broken into its component parts. And so we provided that as well as this kind of supplier information sheet. So we had that blurb that I gave, and then they needed to have a think and provide a short description of how their product or service or whatever it was that they were putting forward met the description of that we'd provided. And then there was an assessment process carried out by our own internal ProCirc team, or our team who were working on the ProCirc project, I should say, and they then carried out that assessment to see if what it was that they had submitted met the definitions that we'd provided, and that was carried out at the beginning once we'd received those applications, and the ones that passed it then went on. As I said, if it's going to continue in whatever form, whether it's as it is or if it adapts or whatever, then there will need to be a process put in place for maintaining that level of accuracy. We will need to make a decision about whether or not applications will be at set times of year or if it will be an ongoing process. That is something that will need to be considered. But for the pilot, that's what we did.
Okay, very good. Thanks very much. Last question for Tommy. You mentioned your CO2 savings, your money savings, which is quite astonishing. Do you also look into environmental impacts? So such as, for instance, reducing environmental chemicals released into the environment, or the pollution as a consequence of manufacturing use or disposal of the items that you didn't buy?
We are looking into it, of course, and we're struggling a bit, or I'm not just struggling. We are working with all the identifiers. How should we? What are we to be reported? What are the needs? So we work upon a lot of these things, and it's in our building projects. I think it's more specified, and we're learning on the more common contracts for office goods and so on. So I think not everything is, as there is a question about toxins here, you can always ask me about animal welfare, and there's a lot of topics which are included in the life cycle and in the whole approach. So it's more like this document is meant to be making every employee thinking of themselves, and we are going to create some what do you call strategies for every area, actually.
Yeah. So
in
you're looking
food
at it.
and so on. There will be more detailed, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. I also like the picture you showed with all the different items that needs to be there and bought. It's quite striking when you see all of them together. I don't see any other questions, and we are just on time. I would like to thank you all very much, and I hope it was useful for the participants. We will share the slides, the links. You will have a lot to look at, so you can start right away. And please don't hesitate to get in touch with us or with any of the speakers if you have any questions. And I think that's it from us for today. And see you on the next one. And have a nice day. And bye bye. Thank you all very much. Bye bye.